Ignore the rhetoric, ignore the propaganda, and realize that I am not your competition. I am your completion. The Bible says it is better for a man to live in the roof of his house than be in a house with a quarrelsome woman. Calm all that down. All that sprinkle shit, calm that down. If you are so talented, so gifted, so degreed, so smart, how you let dumb niggas nut up in you and make babies?
You over here talking?
Without a ring.
Dave Anderson, stop blaming the system. Build our own. Uh-oh, I already know I'm going to say something that's going to make somebody mad. Let's get
All of these shows that are scripted, and you sit up there and you say, I want a man who's a provider. No. Your husband is supposed to be a provider. We out of whack. Iyanla Vanzant told y'all was out of order, and nobody wanted to hear it.
So maybe I feel like with the submission thing, I feel like, because that's like a hot topic on the podcast world with submission. But we keep telling black women to submit to men that don't have their life together.
Who said that?
How can you submit? How can you submit to a man who doesn't submit to God? Everybody's not like you.
I understand that.
You are like in the rare percentage.
I get that.
You must know that there are a lot of black men who don't move like you, who are not successful, who don't want to go to school, who don't want to do anything with their life, who don't have any finances, who don't have any ambition, who have nothing to offer but some dick.
Okay.
So how can you keep telling? And let's talk about it.
Clap
because
it up.
let's talk about it. Black women are.
She's just talking about the guys that she chooses to date, by the way.
In record numbers going to college. We're opening degrees. We're getting accolades. We're running nonprofits. There's a large portion of black women who are educating themselves and taking their lives to the next level, while the black men are not reaching those goals. They're not meeting us on those levels.
This is such a thing that's been talked about in the black community for so long. Black men are failing, and that's why black women don't want to start families with black men. But we got to debunk this nonsense. So she talked about black women owning more businesses, and she's 100% right. 59% of black-owned businesses are owned by women. To keep going with what she's trying to say, it says here the number of black women-owned businesses has increased 3.5 times the rate of increase compared to black men-owned businesses, 68% and 19%. But here's the kicker, and this is what matters the most. Women business owners are less likely to be employers. Nearly 9 out of 10 women-owned businesses are sole proprietorships. And this is the part that matters the most. Businesses that have employees tend to bring in more receipts, while the average receipts of a non-employer firm with women ownership is $20,000. So look, I'm not a hater. I'm not trying to knock anybody's hustle here, but the proof is in the pudding. 90% of these businesses are sole proprietorships, and number one, sole proprietorships don't really create opportunities because you're not hiring anybody, and number two, the average income that they're bringing in is $20,000. And if you read that article closely, it said in receipts, so that's not even including taxes. So the truth of the matter is you don't build a community on sole proprietor businesses. You build a community on family and having a strong working class. And when we're talking about black men, this is from the Institute of Family Studies. More than 1 in 2 black men, nearly 57%, have made it into the middle class or higher as adults today, up 38% from 1960. And the share of black men who are poor has fallen from 41% in 1960 to only 18%, and that was in 2016. So that was nearly a decade ago. So black men are doing better than ever. So if you're talking about this plethora of black men who can't keep a job and they're treating you poorly and they're uneducated and they're not making any money, they're broke, they don't got a pot to pee in, you're just talking about the demographic of black men that you choose today. But this is the point that I'm really making. About 70% of married black men are in the middle class, meaning their wives and their families are also in the middle class, compared to only 20% of never married black men. And that just proves my point even further. You don't build community through sole proprietor businesses and college degrees. You build your community based on how many people are married and having a strong working class. When black people weren't allowed to get married during slavery, they did things like jump the broom to show their commitment to each other anyway. And at one point, black people were the #1 married demographic in America. Most people don't have things and then get married. Most people get married and then they start to have things. That's how it works. So if you refuse to get married because you're at odds with the opposite sex in your same race, then you're never going to start to build families, and the families are what drive the prosperity.
Black women are the largest group of entrepreneurs. They also have more degrees. There are more black women in the C-suite, and to quote Dr. Umar Johnson, you don't find that suspicious? You don't find that suspicious?
It's very suspicious.
You don't find that suspicious?
Go ahead.
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
Black women also have the majority and the highest rate of student loan debt,
Bingo.
which means your debt to income ratio is shot.
Exactly.
Problem number one. Problem
People look at a college degree as a status symbol instead of an investment. It doesn't matter if you get the degree. That doesn't prove your status. You have to then get the job to have the status. A lot of people just think that the degree equals status, and that's just not true.
Problem number two is you spend all that time getting these things on you and not getting any learning in you. Having more degrees than a thermometer does not mean that you understand the temperature of our people.
Exactly.
On top of that, I don't need a degree to tell you I'm a man. Most of my degrees are sitting in the drawer, and the rest of them are at my mama's house in Arizona. I ain't seen them. It don't matter.
Right.
Everything I learned in college was about happening outside of the classroom.
But
Exactly.
want-
About 50% of people who get a college degree won't even get a job in the field that they got the degree in. A lot of the stuff that I did in college revolved around trying to build connections and finding niches that I actually like. Like I was a part of marketing club. I was the vice president of the marketing club. And what we would have to do is we would have to go to local businesses and market for them. And the budget that they gave us, the money that they gave us would go to our group, and we would fund other projects through finding those contracts with people. But the point that I'm trying to make is the real world experiences and the people that I met were significantly more important and useful to me than the degree actually was. I was super surprised to be in college because I used to have like my own little business. It would give me about $500 a week, just some college money, just some stuff to get by, pay minor bills. But I was super surprised because I would go and take these classes on businesses, and they were taught by teachers that never owned a business. And in these classes, we would just sit there and take notes. And I'm just like, why isn't part of this class that everybody has to go onto some bullshit Chinese website, find a product, and learn how to sell it in the real world? That would be much more applicable to what we have to do outside of these walls. But that's being logical, and I don't know what happened to the college system. It seemed like in the early 2000s, college went from actually being about education, and then all these movies and propaganda came out about college just being about party, and that's essentially what it is now. It's just a big old orgy. In my opinion, it's a place where young adults go to procrastinate their lives for $20,000 a year. I learned so much more and so much quicker doing the real world stuff than I ever did just sitting in a classroom talking about doing the real world stuff.
Hold
to
on,
college,
hold
though.
hold on.
You went to college, though.
I went to college to
Okay.
please my mother. I had a record deal. I was singing backgrounds for Teddy Pendergrass. Let's tell the whole story, not just the
Right.
parts you like.
I went to college because I had a Division I scholarship, and it was a full ride. And if I didn't get a full ride and all of my college tuition paid, I would have never went.
And
But you
most
still
of us,
went to college.
again, most of us, black men specifically, go to college out of pressure from their mamas and their grandmamas, not because it's something to do to better themselves.
Very true.
The school industrial complex is made for black women. There have been several studies on this that talk about how
This is
young
true.
black boys are automatically labeled as behavior problems. They were labeled as educable mentally retarded back when Les Brown was in school, and that's going all the way back to the 50s. Then you sit up there and you put them in the programs, then you double down on their reading scores so that you know how many prisons to build.
Yep.
Everything is set up to make sure you rise and think that you are now above us, as opposed to realizing that there's a conspiracy to separate you from me.
So how,
Right, and then in the schools, because they're dominated by women, specifically liberal women, there is this dogma that if boys don't behave like girls, if a boy can't sit in a desk who's 8 years old, if he can't sit in a desk for 8 hours a day, then there's something mentally wrong with him because he doesn't have the same behavior patterns as a girl. So they get these boys and they get all these diagnoses, and then they try to pump them up on drugs. But boys learn differently than girls, and that's something that if you're a parent, you can just see. Boys have to be active. Boys have to be moving. Boys have to be doing things with their hands. They have to be learning that way. Sitting in a desk for 8 hours a day to get a lesson from a person with a pencil is something that girls are better at. The school system is definitely built for obedience and is definitely more lean towards girls. And by the way, feminists always say that women weren't allowed to get an education, but since we've been tracking education statistics, this is what we found. This is all the way back in the 1900s. I specifically looked up the 1900s. In 1900, women had higher high school completion rates than men, earning about 60% of high school diplomas. Men were less likely to graduate from high school because many entered the full-time workforce in their teens. So since we've been tracking education education in America, women have always been better in the public school system. That's just what it is. Men have always been more geared towards the trades, but because we live in a white-collar world now, when the trades are starting to disappear, the blue-collar people were talking about the concerns with AI for years. Nobody cared. But as soon as the AI started to come for the white-collar jobs, that's when people started to get concerned because their paychecks was about to get affected. So yeah, young men, especially young black men, have always been more lean towards the trades than they have been sitting in a desk for 8 hours a day. That's not surprising to me.
How do we fix it is what I'm trying to get at.
I had to, first of all, you sat up there and gave
Marriage.
me a 30-minute dissertation on how great black women were doing. But the
I
second
mean,
I
I
start,
support my black women, that's all.
I support black women.
I support black men
Here's
too,
the
though.
thing. The majority of my clients, the majority of my executive staff, my man Ricardo Cordial, who's been a client of mine for 5 years, he will tell you the majority of the people in my executive team are black women. I have put more black women in the 1% than Nick Cannon with a bag of Viagra. So this is not about supporting black women.
Okay.
Clever.
There's a
That's
woman
clever.
named Anissa Getna who had a nursing business and she had a credit business, and she went and bought her husband. By the time I was done with her, she went and bought her husband a car dealership, then moved to South Africa. She got an AT&T grant. So when it comes to supporting black women, I don't talk about it, I be about it. Right. So that's not the issue. The issue is we need to fix it by divorcing ourselves from their agenda, which is educate our women, make them feel so high up because they got the C-suite positions, they got the degrees, they got the jobs that they put them in, while they disqualify us, underqualify us, tell us we can't do anything, take all of the skilled labor out, and then when they don't take the skilled labor out, they sit there and then make it look like there's something wrong with that.
Right.
Even look at the movies. There's been Tyler Perry movies where the dude is a mechanic. The least watched Tyler Perry movie is what? Daddy's Little Girls, because God forbid you see a responsible single father and a baby mama who decided that a drug dealer, a YN, is better than a dude that works hard every day, because
Right.
that's not sexy enough to brag for your friends.
Right.
You have to understand that this is a psychological op that is played on so many levels that nobody wants to talk about it. So the solution is we go independent, we reject our trash, we stop taking in every piece of bad bitch bullshit that we get. We start looking at the fact that we don't have one black-owned record company, but we got all these black record labels run by palm-colored people with little hats on the back of their head.
Uh-oh. About to get in trouble. I'm happy he mentioned that specific detail. Yep, this group of people gives money to the worst of us, and they tell them to shake their butt on national TV if they want to make more money, and then that's our global image. And it's not even all their fault. Sometimes it's the fault of the dumb people who are deciding to take the money. The record label controls the image of the artist. The artist cannot put out the song unless they fit the image that the record label wants. And who owns the record labels? It's usually not a person from the same culture, and it's usually not a person with the same skin color. There was one time when black music was about consciousness. That's when, in my opinion, it was the most prosperous, and now it's just about shaking butt and killing each other. And by the way, the artists who are signing up for this type of stuff, they know that they're selling out. The girl who's from the City Girls said that she doesn't want her daughter listening to her music, but she's okay with your daughter's listening to her music. Cardi B was caught on camera trying to cover her daughter's ears when her music was playing. So none of these people want their kids to listen to the music, but they have no problem with it being blasted on the radio before your kids go to school. So yeah, spearheaded by a bunch of sellouts who are dumb and they're willing to do anything for money. Remember in Michael Jackson's They Don't Really Care About Us, they tried to make it so that he couldn't say sue me, Jew me, because of course that would be anti-Semitism, but they have no problem funding black people who talk about killing each other and repeat the N-word. Huh? That's interesting.
You've eaten, bro. You created a 360 deal. Y'all don't want to do payday loans, but what the hell you think a record deal is?
Talk to me about the 360 deal now.
So,
The 360 deal.
All right, so a 360 deal means that instead of you just signing a record deal and they get their money from the record sales, they get money from your email list, your website, your touring, your merchandise, your name, image, and likeness. They own you, and they give you a big old advance, and when you don't possibly clear that advance, they turn around and give you another one. Look at Drake.
I thought you were referencing the 360 deal into the black community. I'm sorry. I knew what the 360 deal was. I guess what I'm trying to get from you, and I really appreciate your wisdom coming on the show. I really just want to find like the common ground, because I understand what you're saying, where black women go to school and they get degrees and they feel like they're higher up. But how do we, level it out?
All right, get y'all money. Little ad.
It's not you versus me. It's you and me.
Right.
Right? So here's the thing. When we were allowed to go to school before our women were, we came back and we taught our women. We have to start realizing that we need to raise our entire community, not just our children. So if you're coming with information, instead of standing on the corner with your girls talking about, clock it, I got this many degrees, clock it. Why don't you start clocking the ability to start elevating all of us? We need things.
But that's the problem, though. And that's the part that nobody wants to talk about. When you help out the women in a community or in a country, you don't really help the country. You just help the women in the country. When men get $1 million, they say, great, now I can start a family. When women get $1 million, they say, great, now I don't need a man. So what I'm basically trying to say is it doesn't matter if more women are more wealthy, because women aren't the ones that typically sign up for the burden and the responsibility to take care of a family for 70 years. Typically, that's men. If a woman makes $1 million, she still wants a man that makes $1,001,001 because women like for men to do things for them. So when you help the men, you uplift the entire community or the entire country, because men are typically the ones that sign up to carry the burden and the responsibility of providing for a family. Most women are not even really biologically designed to carry the burden and the responsibility of a family for 70 years of their life, and they don't want to, and that's obvious.
Things that don't involve white money, non-black money, and I'm not saying we can't have allies, but we need to start circling our wagons amongst each other. We need to start circling our dollars amongst each other. The Jews do it, the Italians do it, the Chinese do it. When black people do it, they look at you like you crazy. There is no reason that FUBU should not still be hot today. Y'all rocking Ralph Lauren. There is no reason why Motown should have been sold to anybody but black hands. There's no reason why BET should have been sold to anybody but black hands. And y'all crying about the BET Hip Hop Awards. Hello, Boo Boo Cakes. BET ain't been owned by black people in 27 years.
Hallelujah, amen.
So if you want the solution is ignore the rhetoric,
Black
ignore the
entertainment television.
propaganda, and realize that I am not your competition. I am your completion.
Right.
I am the one that's supposed to protect you, but the Bible says it is better for a man to live in the roof of his house than be in a house with a quarrelsome woman. Calm all that down.
Yeah, everybody talk about the Bible when it comes to a man's responsibilities, but they forget those parts, the parts where the Bible tells women how they're supposed to behave in order to get a man that's willing to live up to his responsibilities.
All that sprinkle shit, calm that down.
Right, going on.
And by the way, when it comes, and this is just me making sure that I'm giving you a solution, if you are so talented, so gifted, so degreed, so smart, how you let dumb niggas nut up in you and make babies
You over here talking
without a ring, without any type of commitment, and then you go and say that you don't like the white man, he's oppressing you, this, that, and the third, but you go to your white boss, then you go to your daddy government, and you allow daddy government to go tax this man instead of working it out with this man. And if this man was a deadbeat, you should have known that before you shed your clothes like Country Crock and spread your legs.
Oh, he's right.
There's accountability on both sides.
Here's the solution, and this is part of how you fix it, starting with the boys. You get young black men into trades. Most young black men don't want to go to school, is debt-ridden, and they can't build their opportunities. They still have to rely on a system that many of them believes hates them in order to get their opportunities. So how do you avoid that? You teach them trades. They can use their hands. They can create their own opportunities. They can scale it into a global business if they're smart enough to do so. And the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the better you get at it, the more you get paid. If you start a trade at 14 years old, when you got stuff to do, it's hard for you to be going and getting involved in all this gang stuff or all this nonsense stuff that other people are involved in, because you have something that you're actually working on already. And by the age of 24, you could be a master at whatever your trade is. Not only that, but you're just more useful to your community because you have a skill, and being useful is important to a lot of boys. The worst thing you could have in your community is a bunch of teenage boys walking around feeling useless because they're going to use their time somehow. So yeah, build families, get rid of the superiority complex, and get young black boys into the trade so they can have skills and be useful to themselves and to the community. Let me know in the comments below if this video was a WRL, and give me the HBO special. That's help by the house special with a like and a subscribe button for more content. Till next time.